My name is Feather Stitch, and this is Otherworldly, presented by Changing Times, Changing Worlds. And this week we have as our guest William Hegeman, also known as Archonstone, better known as Archonstone, who's going to speak about lucid dreaming and related subjects. So if you'd like to go ahead, the floor is
Thank you,
yours.
Feather Stitch. Lucid dreaming, astral traveling, projection, and what I call aspecting, and how to apply that for dream walking and plane walking. Uh, uh, Basically, I have a handful of tips and exercises that can help you with navigation and memory. And the first part is memory. And the first thing that we normally get into is this lucid dreaming and having a certain amount of control over how we dream. The old adages of also telling yourself, I want to dream, I'll be lucid dreaming, I'll be aware, and I will remember. You tell yourself that before you go into sleep. The problem is that is that is the will and intent, and it's intellectual, but most of our dreaming comes from a more instinctual feeling side, and it's from there that we translate and turn on our lucid dreaming. So having that will and intent set there is awesome, but the trick is to, even if you don't remember or can't remember when you first wake up, most people try to write things down, but as soon as you turn on your active thinking brain, your spirit slash energy slash emotion brain gets overwhelmed and you forget. The trick is to remember how it feels, and it's starting to learn how to feel from your emotions, from the physical sense of your body that you can remember. And if you can remember that, not only will this help with lucid dreaming, but it will also help you remember things from other times, other places, other emotionally laden situations where it's very hard to remember because that's not our normal emotional state. If we can remember that emotion and let it and feel it, your ability to remember that time increases. You'll start remembering details. If you can remember things from your childhood, you just have to remember how you felt as a child. And our own ego gets in the way because we're used to feeling what we want to feel. If we remember what dreaming is, for most animals, it's survival rehearsal. Whether you're chasing animals or dealing with work situations or something of a reflection of your relationships. True, our complex minds uses a lot more symbols and a lot more memories about things that we've been exposed to, and we have emotional content laden on those images. If we remember how we feel, we can understand what those symbols are. So my first technique, if, first, get plenty of rest, because you tend to be able to dream better when you're even more rested and you give yourself some time to sleep. And I know sometimes that's difficult because I burn candles at both ends. But I do work on trying to meditate, get myself in that frame of mind where I am listening and feeling to my emotions and my energy. Tell myself I want to remember sometimes what I want to focus on, and I tell myself remember how it feels. But first, I memorize my hands. I've learned this technique, and I don't remember where I got it from, but I also seen Matt Orendel also talk about it. You take a look at your hands and memorize it, and look. You may not see the exact type of hands. If If you start shape shifting, that's a whole nother thing. But the moment you see your hands, take a short little sniff, just a short sniff. It's to get your brain to focus. The one autonomic thing that you control is your breathing. And if you just stare at your hands and practice, just a little sniff. So when you are in a dream and you see your hand, you get that little sniff and say, okay, I'm ready to do. This is what babies first learn to explore things. Because before they can explore things in their mouths, they have to reach and put things in their mouth. And your first integrative things of how you deal with the world is by your hands. So as soon as I see my hands, I've trained myself before I go to sleep, and I practice it, especially when I want to do some lucid dreaming that night. I do that practice. So that it'll cue arm a focus. First thing I do is I ask, how do I feel? It isn't, when I practice this, how do I feel? I do that here because it's not going to be a question you can verbalize, but you got to have it in your mind to practice. How do you feel? It's like you go any given time, any place, any situation. It's like, how do I feel? What's the energy of the person, place, or thing? Because in your mind, if you can remember how you feel, all the details will be there for you to remember, and then you can be aware of that. And when you wake up, remember how you feel, and then you can apply your intellect to it. This does two things. When you wake up, you remember how you feel. You're validating that you are turning on that part of your brain that works in the subconscious when you sleep. Comes from people use that technique. Like the like the back of your hand. I don't know how that term comes from there, but that is an interesting connection. So if you're reaching out, yeah, you're going to have to look at the back of your hand, and then you feel it. And it's a question. It's not only that you're thinking about it, you're actually feeling it, and you're turning it on, and you tell yourself, how do I feel? You wake up, you focus on how do you feel, and then you can analyze. So now you're tying your intellect into a feeling state that you experience when you're dreaming. So this is a practice. It takes effort to get to that point where your mind starts picking up the symbols, and then you're tying your analytical mind into your dreaming states. I hope that makes sense. So this is to get to that point, you start feeling what your own energy is in your lucid dreaming. Now, astral traveling, it's the same thing. You start working on those feelings and what have you, so that you can remember. Now, astral travel, astral projection, these are conscious things. We can talk about different ways of getting into a liminal state, but the thing that I really stress is that you have a good sense of how to protect yourself, to basic shielding. At least if you're going to start astral projecting, you put shields up, you put whatever protections that you need around you, and that feels comfortable, that's going to go with your spirit. The other thing is have enough energy management. If you are going to astral project, you got to have extra astral to do it with. And that means you're going to have to pull it in from nature. You store it in from whatever. Because when you project, you're going to leave bits of yourself there, and it's like you're spending it. And I don't suggest it, but this is what everybody learns, and this is the first thing that you start with, because you actually project it. Now, some people talk about projecting out of your solar plexus, some out of your throat, the ajna, or your third eye, crown chakra. For me, what worked best was my third eye. I'm working on my crown chakra for when I leave this mortal coil. So it is a practice that you can use to help improve your control when you transmigrate, when you leave the body. So what do I do to actually help improve this and improve a condition with how your spirit is going to be out there? There's a technique called a bija mantra or a bija technique. That's a Hindu practice. Tibetans have another practice. When you're doing a body awareness, it's strengthening the wind horse, absolutely. Or some people call it edifying your spirit. You're adding to it, but you got to add what's compatible to you. Because you take energy that's not compatible to you, it starts irritating the spirit that you have control over, and eventually your soul. So I'm very careful about making sure you have applicable astral that you can draw on, and that is good for you, because you're going to need it before and you're going to need it to do it after. But how do you get a piece of astral that you're projecting outside of you to work in a way that you're attuned to it? The Hindu method of yoga and Tibetan practice is, while you do your meditations of each part of your body, and you understand that energy, you take a small aspect of that energy of each part of your body, and you build a small version of yourself, the astral self. And whether you're imagining it, you can use your eyes to focus inward, to bring it in, but you build it, and it's almost like a crystal example of yourself. And if you bring all different components of your body into it, you're tuning it to your body. And then when you bring it to your astral projection site of choice, inside, not outside, inside. I put it right inside my third eye right here. Some people right here, solar plexus. When you put your astral through it, you're attuning the loose astral you put up with. That's attuning it to your body, your frequency, your shape, your whatever. And as you push it out, you practice by creating a form that is like you and bringing it back. Now, before I did this, I did a practice that is very helpful, and I call it retrospection. And it's using and developing your imagination in your mind to create control outside. I imagine myself going out for me, whether it's 5 feet or 15 feet, walking down to the mailbox, taking a look in the mailbox, looking on the kitchen counter, see what dishes are there, what's on the table, what's in the fruit. If you have a fruit bowl, how many pieces of what fruit, how are the keys laid out, you name it. You go there and you do this imagination exercise, and then you go out and you verify what's there. You give your mind a way of giving yourself validation. You are teaching yourself that, yeah, what you do works. Okay. You may not get the exact image, But if you notice something odd and you picked up something odd, then it's what is the emotional context of it? And then you're starting to realize that that object maybe had an emotional context that giving you a different symbol. This is also another way of validating how you're going to perceive things when you're outside your body. So you go and then you actually practice. Then you practice pushing that energy out. Use your body, push that astral out into that form, give it shape, get it to the point where you are seeing it, feeling it from that mind, from a mind's eye view of where you're placing that imagination. And once you realize that your imagination and you're starting to verify with things outside yourself, and you got a good control over it, that's the time where you can push it and push it out further. Now, you want to be in some sort of meditative state. And I've done it by pure meditation. There's a technique of using a bowl with some light on it so that it reflects and it comes back to your eye. Starwolf, you got a few more techniques that I don't particularly use, so I
Yeah,
want
well,
to share them.
let's start with the really keen technological one. Oops, it seems to have shut itself off. So power, there we go. Give it a second to do its little countdown thing and go. This little toy here, if you can see it flashing, this is like the third or fourth generation of what they call mind machines. I'm going to shut it off now because I don't need it running right yet. What this does, I've only got it partially set up. This is the toy I use lately, and I refer to them as toys because they are kind of. It's called a Procyon. The original ones were called headlights, and they were, oddly enough, originally invented for ravers. Because what you have here is, while I've only got the output to the glasses, you have an input here that can run from a tablet, like this little baby here, or a tape recorder. I am old enough to remember when everything was on tape. CD player, depending, or you can fit a microphone to it if you've got somebody doing live drumming. And what will happen is those lights will, if you have it set for the auxiliary input, those lights will flash to whatever rhythm is coming in through the input. Now, these don't work as well if you are in a situation where there's a lot of movement going on, because unlike the earlier generation where the lights were all along the top and you could see through the lenses, these block your vision. So this is best used for lying or sitting. But the idea was it will, at the upper frequency, it'll put you into a trance state. Good old Schulman resonance used to be 7.14. It's risen to 8 cycles per second at this point. This one has a bunch of pre-programmed sound and light ones. I tend to basically run it off the tablet to use some of the drumming programs that I use. That's how that. The advantage of that is it will send you out no matter what happens. It works especially for people like me who have attachments to our bodies, maybe because we got blown out of them a couple of times, that is a little bit stronger than normal. Other things I've used successfully, a mixture of kava root, valerian, and passion flower. Thankfully, you can get those all in capsule form these days, because brewing it up as a tea, the house stinks, and if you have cats, the valerian drives them crazy. If catnip can be said to be kitty pot, valerian is kitty crack. I have had them claw through wooden boxes to get to it. Also functions as a wonderful, basically a way to calm people down, because valerian is the herbal original that Valium was developed out of. So it's basically slipping myself a Mickey every night.
You ever use mugwort?
What?
You ever use mugwort?
Yes.
Okay.
I love the stuff. Drink it, smoke it. Can't smoke it much because of Kathy's asthma, so I tend to drink it as tea. Not the best tasting thing on the planet, but I've always said if it looks like swamp rot, smells like swamp rot, or tastes like swamp rot, a shaman will drink it, eat it, or brew it into, or will eat it, smoke it, or brew it into a tea and drink it.
There you go. A couple other
Um,
techniques.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also the one I used started with back when I was in high school. Was one I lifted oddly enough out of a science fiction novel by Lynn Carter, which involved visualizing a black sphere which gradually turned into a tunnel and then moving down the tunnel. From what I understand, he lifted that from what is it called, the Changangal, which was later brought to the West as Ekanar or Ekankar, depending on which group you're talking to.
And
So yeah,
that's a phosphine thing that the Tibetans use as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
this basically stimulates the phosphemes, which acts on the pineal gland, which basically gets it on a physiological level. Once you hit the right frequency, the pineal gland starts cranking out the chemical DMT, which is an extremely potent hallucinogen. Thank you, Dr. Harner, for teaching me that part.
there you go.
Yeah. So those are my tools.
Awesome.
This has the advantage that I can plug multiples into using splitters into one output. So if necessary, I have a second set. So if I need to go somewhere with somebody, they can come with me or I can go with them.
Nice.
Yep.
Second set. I'm going to even write that down.
Tools for Wellness sells them. And I've recently picked up another, I call them toys simply because, on certain levels they are. This, I haven't really used it yet. A couple of people have seen it. This would be plugged into the input. Power on. Give it a second. What it is a drum synthesizer. That I can use to do drumming for people. Now I have to find a set of small speakers that aren't Bluetooth enabled, because this thing is old enough that it needs an actual jack to connect it to the speakers. So far, everything I've found is, it's all Bluetooth enabled. Goody.
Right.
I'm going to shut this down. No sense wasting the battery.
Yes. Drumming at a slow rate that encourage your breathing and your heart rate to go down. Bowls of water, limited light, with a flickering light, or old school, you can just look at the top of your head and the strain of your eyeballs will start flickering for you.
Oh yeah, that one gives me a headache.
Yeah, I'm not saying all these are different techniques.
Yeah.
The thing is if you feel it in your body and you get to that liminal state, it's actually you are breathing out and you're using part of your body, whatever is natural, and you're putting it into that shape and form. The same thing is you get into that state and then you start wandering, do what you need to do, but remember how you feel, because you have your intent of where you want to go and a path to get there. And the thing is, you'll find that you'll end up skipping. It's not like you're walking. Sometimes you just pop from one place to another. You're actually remembering the place or the object by how you feel about it, or the feeling of it. And sometimes if you're not feeling it, and you're reflecting your own emotion things, you're going to travel somewhere else to reflect what is going on in your head and your emotions. So it's very much an energetic thing. You end up floating. It's not like you're actually walking. Now, the trick of navigating, and this is also another exercise besides the retrospection technique, is what I call imagine what is 5 feet and 5 seconds from you in the future where you want to go. In other words, you are feeling out the energy of a time and place signature where you're next going, whether it's 5 feet or 50 feet, 5 seconds, or 50 minutes, or you want to do it within a reasonable amount of time, 5 seconds, 15 seconds. If I'm driving in a car, it could be 100 feet and 5 seconds. So I practice just that awareness of how does that feel 50 feet, 5 seconds from me. You practice how that feels. The reason being is imagine that you are in a canoe, okay? And you want to get on the other side of the lake, but you have to feel the 5 feet in front of you of the lake, and you do that with an oar and you pull it to yourself. But the trick is you got to let go of the water. You got to pull the canoe out of the paddle out of the water. Otherwise, you're just moving yourself in the same space in the water. Okay, so you have to focus on where you're going, but you're going to go feel the next 5 feet in front of you, pull it to you, and let it go, because then you're working on the next 5 feet. If you're emotionally fixated on where you are, you're not going anywhere. You have to emotionally and energetically feel that next 5 to 10 or 15, 20 feet from you. This way, you are going to move yourself in that direction because you're doing it spiritually. Same thing with lucid dreaming. Now, astral projection, same deal. You are remembering how it feels, but you've got to let it go. And then reach out to the next spot, focusing on where you want to go. This way, you're exploring it. You get to the point where you know where you want to go, you know how it feels. You give it a 4-dimensional time and space stamp, and you allow for the energies is going to be different from what time of day. You're going to pop right there, shoot right there. That's great. So you get your experience. Awesome. You remember how it feels. You start focusing on waking up. Make sure you breathe in through that same spot. I like the idea of right through that crystal so that everything comes back in place, so you don't have to like jumble with all that spirit energy. You got it somewhat aligned to who you are and how you think and function. Do the same thing. Remember how it feels, and then allow yourself to analyze. Then you do your psychic hygiene. You're out there, your energy is also attracting things, places, and people, and their presence and their identities. You go through the same psychic hygiene you do with meditation. If you don't, you're just going to cycle it through your body. You're going to have weird ass dreams. You're going to go places that are reflective of things that you picked up. This is not an ideal thing because you're trying to make sense of something that is not you. Yeah, coming out of the show, let's grab hold of them. Yeah, the more energy you accumulate and the more energy you have to go out there to interact with things, yes, you're a big tasty eat at Joe's sign. And yes, you have to practice not only your shielding for your body, but for how you astral project. And sometimes there are people and things casting about to feel for anything that's energetic and make a space for you to show up to trap you. That happened when I was 22. I was in Troy, New York. I was astral projecting, and they got a whole bunch of people that practice magic up there. And I popped into this people's circle, and they wanted me to focus on their trapping mechanism. You know, I don't play that game. I flash fried it and got myself out of there. But if I hadn't done the meditation, if I hadn't done the focus my who I am or whatever, I may have fell for it. So that is something that would be helpful to really do. Get control of yourself, protect yourself, and also when you come back, center on who you are and ground out what's not you. Then go find the natural resources that you have built yourself up with and collect more of it, because you just spent, unfortunately, a shit ton. Yeah, if you have spirit allies that can keep you safe, that's great. But also you need to take care of yourself too. You have to have that type of capabilities. I haven't had spirit allies. Those of you that have, I can't speak to that. All I can say is what I've had to do for myself. The next thing, besides astral travel, is astral projection is astral traveling. And what this is that out on your shields, just like you paint a place where you pull energy from, you can astral project the space that you want to go to and pull it to you. You pull it to you, you do the same thing. You're walking in it's almost like a 3D virtual reality. You're creating a virtual reality that is actually connecting to people, places, or things. Same thing. But that is not using that first technique. You are using your whole body, your whole presence within your shields. But guess what? You're also, now that you brought that into you, you're also drawing in things that come within your shield. You've got to scan your environment when you come back. You have to do the psychic hygienes. If you got your allies there with you that help protect you, that's great. But sometimes they miss things because not only are they beings, there's places and things. They can leave loose astral or miasmas that all have these type of flavors of astral energy that you can actually can affect you. So that's the third. That's the other technique. The next technique is tying this all together. You are creating an astral form outside yourself, but you are not doing it with your personal astral. You are building that thing of light from your retrospection exercises, and from that separate place, you pull energy into that form. You pull it into that form, and then all you have to do is alter the energy of the form to travel wherever you want to go. And you can go to a lot weirder places. You can go to planetary realms. You can go to skewed realms, different realms that you can go to, negative, mirror realms, what have you. And all that energy is not compatible with you. But if you got that template working and you are tied into it, you can remember the feeling of it, but you don't have to reflect that energy in here. The moment you start reflecting that energy with that body of light, that aspect of yourself, you're going to start changing the astral makeup of your own body, and your body really requires you to have a certain predictable thing that makes your body work. That you've spent a lifetime keeping your soul and body together. That spirit is a very helpful tool to deal with that. albeit you learn to be a lot more flexible. You start learning to feel other places, other things that are vastly different from yourself, and you can travel much further. You can present yourself instantaneously, just like the way you do with astral traveling. And if you lose it, you can create another one. You are not losing any personal energy. I keep this very tight. After my first sets of astral traveling experiments and what have you, and getting wiped and having things come find me and come follow me home and all sorts of things, and have to do extra cleansing, deal with all the weird dreams. This is where lucid dreaming, the development and the skills of it, because even if you've done the cleaning, there may be residuals, and it's going to pop up in your dreams. Like, what is this? Is it, you practice that breathing meditation, what's me and not me, you let go of what's not you. You ground it out. You can even ground it out in your dreams. But it's not me, let it go. Every spring, every fall, I tell people who are sensitives, who end up having back-to-back strangest ass dreams that you can ever think of, and you're trying to make sense of it. You think you're getting a download, think the world's going to change. They'll come up with anything and like, oh, this is the fifth dimension. I'm getting downloads. And no, you're not. You're picking up all the astral junk that's normally grounded out. Trees churn it up in the spring. They kind of make it go away when the leaves are out. In the fall, when the leaves curl up, it's still churning it up until it goes to sleep. If up north, people, if it doesn't get grounded out, you have enough snow and it bounces over the surface, and the light will basically make it go away. Down south, not so much. You get dark little corners, things aggregate. That's the whole thing. But anyway, that exercise of what's 5 feet in front of you, 5 seconds from you, you are learning to ping and sense the outer world. But at the same time, this is a very useful exercise, not only for this world, but when you're actually traveling with your spirit. And I think that I covered that quicker than I've ever covered it before.
I can ask a question. As
Please.
somebody who's relatively new to all of this, you've talked about the how of astral projection and lucid dreaming. Why do you do this?
Why?
Why?
Well, lucid dreaming, I want to know what's going on in my head.
Yes.
Okay. And you figure out the symbols and trying to intellectualize them without analyzing how my feelings and work with my mind. You're tying your feelings, your subconscious, to your analytical mind. Most people try to think everything is mine. It's not. You use your whole body. The tool to get your subconscious working with your body is how your feelings. It'll reflect all the metabolism. Every energetic shift in your body will reflect through your subconscious, and you develop a language. You're thinking with your feelings of feeling energy in your body.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I found that trying to interpret people's dreams, or like in this day and age where you don't have a common cultural context and people have their own cultural context, it becomes difficult. For me,
that's an understatement.
Huh?
That's an understatement.
Yeah. For me, houses are different buildings or types of relationships, and vehicles are a way of getting somewhere. But usually, I pop into things. So occasionally, I imagine driving a motorcycle. Other times I imagine that I'm a dragon or a scorpion, or occasionally a dragonfly, and I'm flying. Dragons tend to weave between different planes. This is the thing where when you're doing astral traveling or projection and aspecting, it's fair to say we're going to talk about dream walking and plane walking, because when you start experiencing things of not this plane, you're going to start experiencing things that are in nature skewed, and it's when you start seeing how it feels, you're also going to have to start feeling how does time interact with it, okay, and how it feels. For example, most people have underworld dreams that are like you're walking down a road and it starts turning to a gravel path, okay, or you're on a gravel path and it turns into a 4-lane highway. You're walking down a little stream. Next thing you know, it's a big wide river. Sometimes you got solid boats, and sometimes the boats are made out of rubber. You get into a building, nice professional building. You take an elevator, and next thing you know, it all becomes rubber. This is because space and time collapses around things, and then when you move away from that plane and its focus, it becomes distorted or starts melding into the next plane. When people are in dreams, you tend to have these little objects, and once you focus on something, your dream shifts. You go into something else. I was dreaming about this, but what happened? I wanted to follow that. Well, you got distracted. And there's something that is symbolic that gave you an emotional reaction that changed the energy of your body, changed the energetic portion of your spirit, and it happens when you're astral projecting and traveling and aspecting. As soon as you pay attention to it, it shifts you to that where that object exists in both planes, but you focus on the new plane. And sometimes the energy that people have placed on a real thing has nothing to do with how you actually feel about said object. It may be just the energy of that object and the energy that people have placed on it. Why you pick up on it, I don't know. That's a riddle that you have to figure out for yourself when you're doing this exploration. Why do I want to practice lucid dreaming? I want conscious discipline with my spirit, because the spirit thinks in feelings in a dream state, and I don't have control over my will and things. I want will to be tied into my spirit when I leave this body, or some aspect of me is in a spiritual place somewhere else. I want to develop the discipline of being able to recall memories, be aware of what's going on, and making choices.
Okay.
Because most of the time we're just following disciplines, patterns of behavior, and desires. The thing is, I want to be able to choose the disciplines, choose what I desire. When I dream, I want to be able to go somewhere else. If I'm going plane walking, you get out in nature and you're doing this astral travel, and next thing you know, you find yourself where the plane is not. Everybody expects the plane is right here, but when it starts shifting, guess what? It's another plane. All these planes exist. There's multiple planes where you're at. Some of them are angular off of the mountains, like the Appalachians. You go along some of these ley lines or some of the fault lines. You're going to find planes come off the fault lines like this, but as you get away from it, the plane is still there. But you can actually feel it, and it's relative to the place. But the thing is, the time skew is going to be a bit different. Okay. But if you feel it, you can connect to it. And then you can connect to the next one and the next one. And where the planes interlap, guess what? There's objects there that you can sense, and you can skip from plane to plane to plane. You travel very fast. There's a corridor from here that I go up to downstate New York. There's places I go up there just above around Ithaca. There's other places, planes that I go up there. They're kind of unique. I don't go there all the time because I'm changing myself enough that I'm experiencing new places, and they kind of reflect those things.
Okay.
So this gives you opportunity to move elsewhere. Yes, Bill, Mr. Griffinbrook.
Yes, I have an issue that's kind of rising out of all of this, and it's probably going to wind up better being an entire otherworldly of its own. But everything you've said tonight has touched upon my primary obstacle to making progress in this. When I was young, they did not diagnose the fact that I was autistic. And events in my early childhood added to that and left me withdrawn, timid, and risk averse. So naturally, I hid in my intellect, which is quite powerful, and spent most of my life walled off from the emotional side. Now, how do I get out of this? Is there a primer for reconnecting to your emotional side? Is doing lucid dreaming a discipline that would help?
That's the whole point of it. Because the lucid dreaming thing, asking how you feel, same thing. During your day, how do you feel?
Yeah. And that's interesting. I got to start doing that because I realized as you're talking about dreams, I have dreams in high resolution color and full Dolby surround sound.
Awesome.
But I would be hard pressed to tell you how I felt in any of it. It's probably because I don't think about that.
It is a discipline. I mean, believe it or not, my family has autism. Okay. I have a touch of it myself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Two of my children have it. My brother had it, probably other relatives. At 12 years old, I found people's humor and emotions abusive, and anything with humor was about people's pain. And so I refused to laugh. I chose Spock as my hero. So I doubled down on doing the stupid. Okay. Of course, at 14, I kind of blew that out of the water because I, did a meditation, asked for a presence of God to give me wisdom. Unfortunately, it's the wrong God. And that was 30 years of adventures that are all hell. But but that's a different story. The thing is learning how it feels is something that I figured out how I controlled that thing. And part of it was I was teaching myself what I call internal alchemy, but it's basically personal cognitive therapy. Basically, I had to remember how I acted and reacted when people abused me, because I could not remember the circumstances, what was said, who said what, how it was said. I couldn't change it because I couldn't remember where it came from. The moment I felt it, moment I chose to remember the feeling, and I had to act it out and get the feelings and feel the way I was, feel the way I did it, and rehearse it. Then I could get to the meditative thing. It's like, okay, I feel it. I have to change it. So I change my feeling and change an action. So what I'm doing is I'm making my ego, my analytical part of the brain, flexible by changing my emotional states from how I feel. So I'm teaching myself emotional fluidity, but I'm also teaching myself fluidity of being dissociative. Most people look at being dissociative is not a good thing because most of the time it's neurotic and people bury it. But it's from an emotional personality construct that people get into, and then they frame how they think and function from it. You get a medium, they change their whole emotions and they remember things. They don't remember how they were possessed because their emotive changes change, but all their intellect, everything they know has been taken over, but they've had to have some sort of flexibility of how your emotions work. I mean, if you're a shaman, you got personality stepping in you, and yeah, that break you down your ego and your personality, and they give you dozens. So you start learning to do pattern matching. So the thing is, from your analytical mind, there is you want to break things down in a logical order, sequence. That's not how it works. You pattern match it. It's an amorphous blob, it's moving. And if you remember an amorphous blob, how it moves, and your feelings the same way, you can start pattern matching these multidimensional aspects. But the only way you can do that is have the feelings reflect that so that it activates multiple parts of your brain or how you did it. I broke out of it not only by acting, but I went from Spock to Robin Williams. Okay. And I rehearsed all that. And then people couldn't deal with me either way. Okay. Because people need one solid personality that's predictable, that they feel is predictable. So they are willing to engage you. If you don't have that predictability, people will shut you right out.
Mhm.
If you don't have a predictable way that they're comfortable with, they'll still shut you out. But that's a different discussion. Yeah. So I learned how to move that, but I learned how to feel and change the emotions so that this helped me to read. I could sit at a fair and take a client every 10 to 15 minutes, and I would do this shifting constantly. But I have to hold on to me and have this emotional aspect that I rehearse. It's like building a whole new person inside my head so that dynamic I start relating to. And it takes practice, and it's literally acting. And the thing is, if you focus on the acting, you focus on the emotions. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, he's autistic as all get out, but what does he do? He shifts his emotions. He shifts it into a character. This is where, like the method acting school, you get into the whole character, you become the character. So this lucid dreaming thing is a beautiful, excellent tool to develop your psychic skills. It's a way of expanding your experiences by making your ego flexible with your body so that you can emotionally feel, sense, and start working with other symbol sets. And if you have the discipline, you can turn it off because now I can just be Bill. There, I can be somebody completely excited that engages with people, or I can be like, oh, yes, Robin Williams, come here, olive oil, oh, Pluto, but then you start relate to those type of people, those characters. You play it out in your head to the point where it becomes a tool. And when you realize that you can feel that other experience without having it impact you physically, okay? So when we're dealing with people and whatever, and it's an exercise you do physically with your body, okay? How do I feel? And what are the personalities with that feeling? And what new enthusiasm that you can learn from a different feeling? I took this to the nth degree. I mean, how to become a multiple personalities all running in my head. They all were excited for each thing that it was supposed to do. And I would switch around them, and it would be aware of everything that's around me until I'm flooded. Okay. But for me to function in the world, I had to have one coherent personality. But I couldn't be code switching between them all because that would be too disruptive. People would pick up, there is something wrong with him. I can't figure out. It's like he's talking from 12 different points of view. I just want one. So, so yeah, this is all of this builds up to a magical practice that I find I use today. Okay. But it's doing this. The first reason why I started doing this was so I could have control of my spirit and my soul when I leave this body. Number one, that was what I had in mind when I was 13 years old.
Okay.
Everything was absolutely bone dead crazy where I live.
Talk about planning ahead.
Yeah. Now we are getting close to the end here. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to ask?
I'm sorry, that was a deep question. Thanks, Bill, for that.
That's okay. Yeah.
Any other
Well,
questions?
I mean, it was meant to be because it's fundamental to my life, and it suddenly seemed to relate so much. And I see I've plowed up a lot of dirt, and everybody can relate to it.
Yes.
I don't feel so alone now.
Yeah.
All right. And any other final thoughts, or was that close enough to being a final thought?
Darrell,
did
if
a
you
good
have
job of
questions,
filling the
anything
spare
that
Yeah. Chipicon has put some links to your book and your website in the chat. So if anybody wants to save the chat,
Well,
Yeah.
you
there are
seem to have
3 little
covered it
dots at
pretty-
the bottom that you can right click on.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, you seem to have covered it pretty well. I mean,
yes.
we
I
come at
mean,
it
when
from two
Star
very
Wars
different.
can't think of anything to add.
It's fascinating. You have me excited about looking into it and
Mhm.
seeing what I can find.
Well, yeah, it's a much bigger subject than I thought it was.
Yes.
And
Subject is huge, and every culture has its own spin on it. So,
Mhm.
yes.
well,
yeah,
I never thought to link shamanism to it.
Yes, when you start doing a lot of the astral projection or traveling, you will find the mystical river.
Mhm.
It's almost and it changes. You will find Mount Meru, and inside the Meru is it's almost like the Yggdrasil tree. Everything
Mhm.
there's cultures, places, and everything. It's all there.
The world tree, the world mountain, the world skyscraper these days.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
everything,
Well, thank Chris
everything,
Penzak for that
everywhere,
one.
all at once.
yeah. And when you start recognizing that some of these things are the same, especially when it's really intense, dense, and really weird, you start seeing that these uh, shamanic symbols and cultures start falling out and
They're
give you the framework.
coded into our DNA
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can identify with trees. We can identify with water because our fascia does all of that. Okay.
Yeah.
Our body does all of it. And everybody relates to the same thing. So it's like the more, yeah, the more gigabyte space of thinking and feelings, the more complex and rich the panorama is going to be, especially when they start mixing planes together. When you start mixing planes together, you'll get all that shamanic stuff. You'll start seeing and being a dragon and a griffin. I've seen griffins. I've seen other things.
Hmm.
There's planes where I run with wolves,
Mhm.
and then when it spins the other way, years later, I found I'll run with hyenas. And when I'm calm, and when I do that and I'm practicing that, the energetic work with nature, next thing you get a lot of these nature references like piling in, and then they show up in real life, and they become very useful, warning you. So
Okay. Well, we've reached the top of the hour, so thank
I
you
need to go eat, so
so
good night.
much. This has been a fascinating subject. I'm going to remind everybody that this is Changing Times, Changing Worlds presentation of Otherworldly, and we are looking forward to doing another conference next year. We had one recently, and it went very well.